Okay, welcome back. It's June 6th of 2015. We're switching topics now. We're going to move on to the Song of Solomon. We just finished up Psalm 22 and the new theology. Now we're going to take a look at the Song of Solomon and the new worship that evolves under New Covenant. So we've taken a look at New Covenant from Ezekiel 37. We took a look at new theology through Psalm 22. And now we're going to take a look at new worship through the Song of Solomon. And we're going to begin with Lacocque. He always goes first. He's going to give us the language of structure, the language as stirring, and the language as stairway. So if we look at the first moment, you can see that we've gone from the covenant of a doxa indwelling in Ezekiel 37. We moved on to a new theology of the poor in Psalm 22. Now we're going to look at a new worship that's beyond ritualistic type of worship or cultic worship. And we've got an element here, the 8 aspects of the metaphor of the chariot, which represents the transition moment of incarnating the work of Eros love. And that's in reference in 6:12 of the song, the metaphor of the chariot. And basically, Lacocque says this reflects the 2 books of Samuel. The chariot reference speaks to and reflects 1 Samuel 7:1 and 2 Samuel 6:3. And it speaks to, in a guide road to heaven, its meaning is Eros love, like the chariot of Elijah, transports the Shulamite remnant to heaven. She cannot recognize her own transfiguration, is what the verse is trying to say. Now, the Shulamite, in our approach to the song, is going to refer to the remnant that are being delivered out of Babylon and are going to return to Jerusalem. So the bride, or the potential bride mentioned in the song, is the remnant that's being delivered back to Jerusalem and is going to be taken up in the new covenant. So whenever we see Shulamite, that refers to the remnant of the elect. And they are shown to be similar to a chariot being transfigured and lifted up to heaven in this new covenant. So metaphorically, the Shulamite remnant is compared to the chariot that carried the ark. In other words, the remnant are the image-bearing individuals of the new covenant on their way back to Jerusalem. They are the image bearers of new covenant. There's no longer stone tablets and an ark. It's the indwelt believer. So this remnant out of Babylon, are the image bearers that will bear the new covenant to the world on their way back to Jerusalem. And they are seen as the sacred chariot, or the noble chariot that had carried the ark in the Davidic era. The dance of strength refers to the dance motif, also comes from the Davidic era. When the ark was transferred to Jerusalem, David had his army out front preceding it and marching, waving banners and showing his military strength, which comes from the song 6:4 of the terrible army with banners. So again, another metaphor pointing to the fact that this is a covenant remnant returning to Jerusalem. This is a covenant remnant. 6:13 mentions the summoning to return 4 times, no less. It says return, 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 return. And it shows that return shall be from all 4 corners of creation. In other words, the scattered remnant will be gathered from everywhere. Babylon, yes, but anywhere where they've been scattered, they will be regathered in the new covenant in the new Jerusalem. They will be the covenant bearers, the sacred chariot. The remnant are to be the image bearers of the new covenant to all the world and all creation. Now the Shulamite, and I like this, she's referred to as the Princess of Peace, which is perfect because they're going to coordinate with and be linked up with the Prince of Peace, Messiah, in the New Jerusalem. So we've got the Shulamite Princess of Peace is going to be enjoined with the Prince of Peace Messiah. But the Davidic link is there with the war dance that escorts the covenant. And the example of the Shulamite we have, there was a Abishag Shulamite that actually did minister to David in his old age, and she never did lose her virginity, but she would sleep with David, keep him warm in his old age, minister to David in his needs when he got older. So there was actually a Shulamite that was referenced in this particular song. But again, it's another link to the Davidic heritage. So she represents the returning warmth of the covenant, which is returning to Jerusalem through this remnant. And she retained her purity. She did go out of herself to minister to David, but never did give up her virginity. She represents the supreme value of eros love that must be incarnated in society that is perceived to be corrupt and fraudulent according to these remnant that had been exiled. So we can move on to the second moment, and this is where the eros love stirs up the rigidity of the old way of worship in order to create an entire new covenant understanding. And there are 9 aspects of the Shulamite remnant. It is a directing by wisdom. The love as eros is a wisdom type of typology. Wisdom critiques and stirs the old rigidity. It is new covenant based. The intentionality of eros equals a reciprocity between Yahweh and the Israel remnant as a reciprocity of gift or reciprocity of grace, charity. It transcends the old. Eros is not situated in a prefixed moral structure, and it disturbs the status quo. Eros love is thematically couched in a freedom that stirs the structural rigidity of the old Israel. Now there's a rereading beyond Egypt that takes place here in this new covenant. The stirring of this freedom of wisdom is not speaking toward the old Exodus. Remember the valley of dry bones. This is a new birth experience, a new birth covenant. So it is a 1st century rereading. There was actually a council of Jamnia that had reinterpreted the song as new covenant understanding in the 1st century. So the Shulamite remnant declares that the vineyard is her own, which metaphorically means that the covenant remnant is again linked up with land, that actually linking up with the land of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. The rabbinic support is mentioned. The brothers mentioned in the song intend to defend their sister and see their sister married. That becomes the support of the rabbinic schools that will reinterpret the prophetic testaments according to the new covenant. There is a renewed ethic. The Shulamite remnant will not fall away in a loosening of morals, but will be true to Yahweh in a way that the old Egyptian Israel was not true. Now, the critical aspect of this transition, the entire social structure is critiqued under this eros love. Legalism is negated. The old Israel is seen as a mere contract of law, stone tablets. There is a power of critique in this eros love. It has a power of dunamis and energia. And the legalistic exchange of custom and ritual is to be negated under the new covenant. So it's not being pre-bound to those kind of rigid parameters. It's more of a disturbance of an eroticism that will stir out a new oneness, a new type of unity that won't be based on ritual and cult, but it'll be a oneness based on internalizing the doxa glory of God. And the internalization of Yahweh's doxa glory and the shared dialogue between the community will create a new oneness under the new covenant. The guilt of the Egyptian Israel is transcended, and the remnant begins a new nakedness, a new beginning of a brand new birth covenant. It is an iconic type figuration that's being unveiled here in this song. The bridegroom and the bride are iconic figurations of the new worship to evolve under new covenant. It's a figuration type of unveiling. The existential aspect of union with Yahweh is emphasized, but again, it's not seasonal renewal. It's not renewal of the Egyptian Israel. It's an absolute rebirth of remnant. There's a 3-point literary methodology. There's exaltation of eros, love, and freedom. There's an interruption of the temporal plane where father and descendants aren't present in the song. In other words, the past and the future are not metaphorically represented there. And then finally, liberation out of ritual is what's being unveiled here in this revelation. So the remnant is the Shulamite bride, but the Shulamite bride is carrying the new covenant with her to the new promised land of a new Israel. And so we've got an emerging new covenant in an entirely new type of worship that will not be cultic. The priesthood is going to fade away, and it's going to fade away kind of in a proportionate way as the rabbinic schools rise up. We'll see the Pharisee rabbinic schools rise up and the Sadducee priesthood decline. And in fact, we'll see Sadducee priesthood even voluntarily exile themselves to places like Qumran and the Dead Sea. But it's very much a transition to new covenant that's being borne by the remnant. They're already being interpreted here as the bearers of the covenant in their return, as if they were the noble chariot carrying the ark. But it's no longer rigid stone tablets. Now the theonomos of the divine law is tupas imprinted on the heart of the believer. And the doxa glory of God does not dwell in rock and mortar buildings. The doxa glory of God dwells in the soul of the individual, the psyche of the individual, the gnosis intellect of the individual. And that doxa glory imprints the heart in a tupas imprinting of every individual believer. So we're looking at the journey here back to Jerusalem, and we have the chariot metaphor being fulfilled. So that'll move us on to the third moment of language as stairway. Now under stairway, the new covenant and the new worship is invited into the mother's house in 3:4 and 8:2. This is not a conventional type of covenant. It's more feminine than it is masculine. It's more feminine than it is patriarchal. It's not institutionally contained. It's not rock and mortar that encloses the doxa glory anymore. The doxa glory dwells with all creation and imprints the hearts of the believer. And it is a reciprocity of grace. It is a reciprocity of gift. So we're talking about, Lacocque says, an actualization not of the hidden logos here, which would be more intellect, but an actualization of the hidden eros of love, which is more at the psyche or soul level. And the dunamis and energia of actualization takes place through a supra-instrumental transcendence that is present, kind of a Sophia-type wisdom rather than a gnosis-type wisdom of the telos of soteria of God's hidden kingdom that is the backdrop of all reality. And the power of this actualization is driven by the iconic figuration of the song itself. The language and the imagery of the song itself drives it forward. It is the restoration period. This is the eschatological restoration of Israel, but it's going to be a brand new rebirth with a brand new covenant that is not a raising up of the old Egyptian failed Israel, but a new remnant being reborn that is carrying the covenant with them to the New Jerusalem as a noble chariot. So we've got a new look here at a new covenant, but now we've really gone through the three. If you go back up to that first moment, we've looked at now Ezekiel inaugurating the new covenant as a doxa indwelling of every believer, and then Psalm 22 teaching us the new theology of the poor being prioritized. Now we have a worship beyond ritual, worship beyond cult. That'll wrap us up on the first lesson on a Song of